hoping to provide a platform for stories and narratives, the Diverse Voices Award has always held a special place in my heart. Books and stories can bring other cultures and countries to life, helping us experience vicariously and to see the world through the eyes of others. One story that achieved this admirably was Tech, a book which looks at the Murrin Patha, a tribe indigenous to Australia with a language and a set of cultural values of its own. Michelle Richardson, author of Tech, says she writes about people and how they overcome adversity and prejudice, whether their own or other people's. In Tech, she has crafted a feisty and spirited protagonist whose journey is one of ultimate acceptance of the legacy that her culture has provided her with. Michelle isn't able to be with us today, but can we offer her a big round of applause and acceptance?
So Karen's story, For Keeps, is set in East Newcastle and told through the voice of 12-year-old Ben. Ben is short for Benedicta, and who with her mother has been seeking asylum in Britain for several years following the murder of her father in Cameroon. The judges like the fact that the narrative provides a clear insight into the poverty and uncertainty about the future that asylum seekers face. It's a realistic and poignant story that is well paced, and through the characters of Benedicta, her friend Becky, and the boy Jas, who the pair befriends, demonstrates that the lives of young people are rarely straightforward. Ben is a strong, warm and compassionate character who, in spite of her own trials and tribulations, feels concern for and empathy with Jas, a talented saxophone player whose own father has recently died and who is being badly harassed and bullied. The story ends on a positive note with Ben being baptised as a member of a church. On the day that she has a real sense of belonging, and with her family and friends around her, she feels loved and hopeful. She recognises that wherever I may be, this love and this hope is for keeps.
We love the humour and the narrative voice of this book. It's really funny all the way through, sort of shot through with self-deprecating humour, comic misunderstandings, sort of comic observations. The narrative voice is a 14-year-old girl, Cass. So this book is sort of at the top end of our level, but we felt that that was okay. We discussed that, but we felt that it was fine. She's on her first visit to India, accompanying her mum Lula, who's on a buying trip for her fair trade fabric shop back home. We felt the characterisation was spot on. Cass is early teenish, sort of rebellious, rather self-obsessed, lacking in confidence beneath her sort of blustery exterior, but ripe for self-development. And as the book goes on, we see her sort of shed her Bollywood fantasies of what she thinks India is as she experiences sort of real 21st century India. The story takes in family relationships. She has quite a stormy relationship with her mother, especially because mum's got a new boyfriend. New friendships. She meets an Indian girl who's not a Bollywood stereotype, and she has her first boyfriendship. And there's a very sort of chaste first kiss that we felt was okay. And then the other adventure or issue is that the kids and the adults will try to save the mum's shop that is possibly going to go bust. And the children, the teenagers, find a fantastic plan to try and save mum's shop. So there are a lot of strands in this novel, and we felt that the author quite astoundingly had managed to pull all these strands together. It's an ambitious novel, but a very interesting one. The quality was very high on all three of those books. But in the end, we decided unanimously to give a special mention to Tech by Michelle Richardson, who's not able to be with us, but we send her our best wishes to Australia. And then highly commended, we are giving that prize to For Keeps by Karen Alderman. And the winning book, again, unanimous decision, I'm very happy to say, was Om Shanti by Helen Limon.
The heat got fiercer and my jeans were clinging like the skin on hot milk by the time the car stopped outside our guest house. Lula and Mr. Chowdhury had been chatting away as I watched the world go by, and I hoped she'd been persuading him to fit the old car with some decent air conditioning. I slid my feet back into squelchy shoes and looked through a pair of metal gates at the guest house. The building was 3 stories high and white like toothpaste. Swirly trellising around the balconies reminded me of paper doilies at an old lady tea room. Mr. Chowdhury lifted our bags out of the boot and pushed open the gates. A smiley lady in a dark green sari came hurrying out of the house and hugged Lula. I guess she must be Mr. Chowdhury's wife. Namaste, namaste. Luella, my dear, it is so, so good to see you again. She turned to me and clapped her hands. This must be little Cassia, about whom we've heard so very, very much. She shooed Mr. Chowdhury back to the car, then stood back and studied me. She was so keen to see my sweaty face and terminally frizzy hair that she put her glasses on. I felt like an ornament on Lula's super discount shelf. Actually, not so little, I see. She is like you, Luella, but with much of her father too, I think. I looked down at my sandals. Dust had settled into the spaces between my toes, outlining them in a dark brown like a little kid's drawing. I wondered what Lula had told her about Dad. Probably nothing very good. But that wasn't fair. It wasn't his fault he was different. For ages, I'd had dreams that he'd come back and live with us again. I hoped he'd change his mind and realise that we loved him more than anyone else ever could. Sometimes, when he had a newspaper deadline to meet, he used to yell about the noise I made, and for the first few weeks I thought him going was my fault. The day he left, I put my CD player in the cupboard under the stairs. Lula found it one day and told me the real reason Dad had gone. Then she turned the music up loud and we cried and ate a tub of ice cream together. Don't be shy. All good dishes need a mixture of ingredients, Mrs. Chowdhury said, flipping her sari shawl over her shoulder. Please come, Cassia, I will show you where you are sleeping. Mrs. Chowdhury slipped off her shoes and opened the front door. I picked up my bag and followed her inside. The house was cool and the smell of jasmine and sandalwood drifted along the hallway. Mrs. Chowdhury's bare feet made a soft slapping sound as she walked. Her toenails were painted dark red. Maybe I should have taken off my shoes too. I pictured my sweaty, swollen feet leaving a line of prints on the polished floor and clenched my toes. I wondered how she would feel about her husband flirting with Lula. Maybe they didn't mind that sort of thing in India. Lula and I were sharing a room on the top floor with doors that opened out onto a flat roof. Tubs of tomatoes lined the edge. I stepped through the fly-screen doors and looked out across the garden. Paper lanterns hung from the branches of a tree like origami fruit, and from the lawn below I heard the hiss of a water sprinkler. On the ground floor terrace I could see Mrs. Chowdhury carrying glasses and a tall jug. Mr. Chowdhury and Lula had their heads together over the shop order book, the order book I was supposed to be looking after. Lula was even letting him make notes on the pages. I went back inside and tugged at the doors. The wooden frame stuck and they closed with a bang. Inside the bedroom, a ceiling fan turned, gently moving the warm air around just enough to make it breathable. I slid out of my shoes and put my bag on the bed nearest the door. The mosquito nuts were a glamorous touch, but I'd expected our room to be a bit more five-star and minibar. Dad wouldn't have rated it at all. I cranked up the ceiling fan, and as the blades began to turn faster, something moved on the wall. A pale pink lizard had scuttled along and stopped just inches away from the light switch. It blinked. A tiny tongue shot out of its mouth and slid back between its jaws. I stood very still, holding my breath. The lizard blinked again. As I moved slowly away from the wall and ran for the door, Lula would have a fit when I told her. And while Mr. Chowdhury got rid of it, I would be able to reclaim the order book. But when I got downstairs, no one seemed bothered about mini-beasts stalking the walls. They are called geckos, Cassia. We think of them as our guests. They will help keep your room free of spiders and flies, Mr. Chowdhury said. His teeth were very white, and when he smiled, his mouth crinkled at the corners. What a creep. He'd made it sound like geckos were his best friends and that I was some kind of teen psycho killer. Lula looked a bit embarrassed. She had told me lots about India, but clearly there were some things she'd left out.